Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. Wonderful, wonderful being here in your great presence, alhamdulillah. I always have great joy coming to Shaksiyah School, and I have great memories. In fact, my son used to be here many, many years ago. So it's a great privilege for me to be here. I pray all of you, inshallah, are well, in good health, in good spirit, and in strong iman, in strong faith. I've been asked, therefore, to come here just to speak a bit about what I do and the books that I've written. As you can see, I have 4 books here, which I've, alhamdulillah, written. I've authored 4 books. And each of these books, in fact, has a different story. Not a storybook, but a different story behind why I wrote these books in the first place. I'm going to quickly go through each one with you so you can get a feel about why we write books, the importance of writing books, the importance of you as young people, great wise people, Muslims, human beings, communicating your ideas for the rest of the world to read about. How important is that? It's like when you guys write stories in school, you want people to learn about your ideas, isn't it? In school, it's similar to that. So therefore, I'm going to show you first my first ever book written, which is called The Cutting Edge of the Poet's Sword, Muslim Poetic Responses to the Crusades. Who knows about the Crusades?
We studied that in year 6.
Good. I am a Crusades historian. I have a master's degree and a doctorate, in fact, in the Crusades. So I spent a lot of years at university studying the Crusades. This is my first book about the Muslim response to the Crusades. But I look at poetry. Who knows about poetry? Good. Who can tell me a poem that you guys know about? Yeah.
The Echoing Green.
Ah, that's good. So do you know a line from that poem? Okay, that's fine. That's
Year 5 is studying a poem on Muslim Spain at the moment.
Ah.
All right, I saw it in your books yesterday. Can we give a line?
Yeah.
Could you read
Okay, good. What is a line from that poem? Yep.
I vanish, although I vanish, the most kind, the most gentle of my vanishes.
Ah, that's beautiful. So I write about Spain, in fact, in this book as well, Islamic Spain, because the genesis, the origin of the Crusades, in fact, was in Spain. So therefore, my introduction in this book covers Islamic Spain. But that's the first book I wrote, published about 6 years ago now, just before the years of COVID. So it has a lot of detail in it. It also has an Arabic appendix at the end of the book. So all the poems are translated. The ones that are all translated in the book, the ones I've translated in this book. Now this is one book. Now the second book I've written, in fact, was this one. What is it called? On Being Human. Okay. Now this book is very different to the first one. And the reason why I wrote this book is very different to why I wrote that book. I had to write the book because my PhD thesis was on that book, I had to write it. But this is different. In 2019, it was a very terrible thing that happened in New Zealand, in Christchurch. Who knows about it? Yeah. So an individual called Brenton Tarrant goes to 2 mosques in Christchurch and kills a lot of Muslims. Okay. So this book, I was asked to write as a response to that, called On Being Human, how Islam, our religion, addresses othering, dehumanization, and empathy. 3 very important things. This book, in fact, was launched in Christchurch, New Zealand, on the 1st year anniversary of that killing. It was launched there. In fact, the mayor of Christchurch even came to do a talk about this book at the annual opening. Therefore, this book is very different. I'll tell you something important about why I really like this book, On Being Human, because all of us as Muslims have to try our best to do the best we can with all of the great blessings Allah has given us. Allah has given you great minds, all of you. Allah has given you intelligence. Allah has given you hands that work. You can write things, you can type things, you can read things, you have eyes that see, you have ears that hear, you have amazing things Allah has blessed you with. So always use these blessings to do something to better the world that you live in. Okay? So if you want to see improvements in the world, you want to see good things happening in the world, use your knowledge. Put things down on paper. Write your own poems, isn't it? Write your own stories. Write your own, theses. Write your own analysis. Write your own articles. Okay, your own books. And they'll go a very long way. So therefore, this book looks at the mechanism of what led to that mass killing of all those Muslims in those 2 mosques. Why did that person do it? What was the history behind it? What was the motivation that he had to do that? What was that hate inside of him that led him to do what he did on that day in Christchurch? And then how does Islam look at that? What is our understanding of these concepts of when you dehumanize, when you make someone less than human? Okay? And of course the importance of empathy. Empathy, in fact, is really big for me as a Muslim, as a human, but because I've written 2 books on empathy. This one and also the one after this one, which is this one. Who can tell me something about empathy? What is empathy? Yeah.
You feel sorry for someone?
Ah, good. So what's sympathy then? Yeah.
When you feel sorry for someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
To console,
Sorry?
to help someone.
Yeah, very good. Perfect. It's a perfect answer. So we have sympathy and we have empathy. Sympathy is translated as a with feeling. Pathy is feeling, suffering, with feeling. And empathy is an in feeling. An in feeling. So all of us can have sympathy for things. You can see, for example, an injured dog, and you can feel sympathy for that injured dog. But an empathy would mean to have an in feeling, meaning what would you then do to help that person or to help that dog? I'll give you one beautiful hadith for us to think about. There was once a man who was very, very thirsty, and so he goes and finds a well, and goes down the well and he gets the water for himself to quench his thirst. Who knows that hadith? Do you guys know it? Perfect. Yeah, well done. So what happens next?
Then he saw the dog. He
Yeah.
was thirsty, so then he drank some water, and he got his shoe,
Yeah.
and then went down the well and got some water for him.
Perfect. So what happens is he says something beautiful. He says in Arabic, he said, لَقَدْ بَلَغَ هَذَا الْكَلْبِ مِنْ الْأَرْضِ. She says, this dog, because the dog was licking the earth, because it wanted some water, was licking, had nothing to eat or drink. And the man, when he saw that, he said, this dog is experiencing the same thirst that I was experiencing just a second ago. That's empathy, right? To feel, to perspective take, that this person, this thing is suffering, and I'm going to do something to help that suffering. Then he goes back in the world, gets some water, gives it to the dog, and Allah forgave that person's sin. Allah appreciated that action of his. So I then wrote this book. After my PhD doctorate, I did a postdoctorate on international relations. And I look at suffering. I look at iconography, which is images, suffering, in relation to war in Iraq, Palestine, Afghanistan. I look at Africa. I look at the Holocaust and the suffering of the Jews. I look at many different conflicts. And about the way that empathy is created, how empathy is restricted, how empathy is limited, and beautiful examples of what I call witness empathy, of people really risking their lives sometimes to help other people who are in need. So this is a book that's published a year ago now, I think a year and a half ago now. And it is a book, it does have some pictures inside it as well. So this is the only book that I have that has, in fact, some pictures inside it. But it goes through, again, a lot of stuff. And it's quite hard for me to write this book, in fact, because there's a lot of emotions in this book. It's not nice to read about people suffering or to see pictures of people suffering, but I had to do that in order to write this book. So this is the third book, alhamdulillah, that I wrote. It was published recently. Now, the most recent book, in fact, which I think is probably the most relevant of all these books, is this book called Divine Perfection: Christianity and Islam on Sin and Salvation. This was published a month ago. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Now, I work for Sapiens Institute, and we do many things, for Muslims and to teach people about Islam. But I wrote this book for a different reason than all these books over here. I'll just tell you. I wrote this book because I encountered particular Christian evangelists, people who preach Christianity and preach to Muslims as well. And I found that for a very, very long time, they were not quoting Quran properly. They were not understanding the Quran properly. And in fact, based upon these misunderstandings or misrepresentations, they were making a false impression of Islam to their followers. And that, of course, is terrible, because we should, of course, show people the truth of Islam, isn't it? What a beautiful religion Islam is. And so I wrote this book, therefore, as a response to our Christian friends about what Islam really, truly is. And so this book has just been published, alhamdulillah, now. And I also do presentations on this book. I also run courses on this book. I also run courses on this book as well, online, free courses that you can actually watch and access as well. So that's it. That's me. That's my one, alhamdulillah.
Can you say a big Jazakallah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, absolutely fascinating. And I think the work that's been done in this book is needed in the
Alhamdulillah.
community and Ummah right now.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to open up for questions. We have about 10 minutes for questions. Okay. And I think one of the first questions that I have, which I want you all to listen to the answer for this question, is that you just finished on that you have courses for these books. So how can our children, when they leave the school, log into the courses from these
Okay,
books?
so if you have a pen, I could write down the thing on the board.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to Sapiens Institute.org, okay, that's our website, but it has different tabs. So one is to do with our books, one is to do with our courses. So you'll find, for example, everything we do is free. So you can read this free without buying it even. Download the ebook, PDF, and you can read the whole book for free. And also, this one is also free, which you can read online for free as a PDF. So both of these, other two are quite expensive. You have to pay for them if you want to read them, to buy them. But these, in fact, you can also buy, but these are also free. Now, second to that, you'll also find a section where we have our courses. You have to register for the courses, put your details down. And then we also have slides for the courses. You also have a quiz question to make sure that you understood the content of the courses. Yeah.
When did you make this book?
Yeah. So you know, each of these books has taken quite a lot of time to write. Because this one was my PhD, which is a degree, which takes 4 years. But then the writing of it after that took about probably another 4 years. So altogether, maybe the research and the writing, maybe 7-8 years. This one, to write it, yeah. And then this one, the postdoctorate, probably took even a bit longer. Maybe another 5-6 years, I think. This one, but this one I wrote in 1 year because there was an urgency to do a lot of writing at a very short time. And this book I started in October 2020. So this took about 1 year and 3 odd months, something like that. Yeah.
When was this book published?
Yeah. So the first one was 2016, I think, and the second one was 2018, then 2019, and 2022. So quite recent. Yeah.
Is book writing a full-time job?
Not a full-time job for me. I'm a senior researcher for these guys at Sapiens Institute. But I do write, alhamdulillah, every day almost. I mean, it's hard to find a day where I'm not writing something. And what I suggest for you guys to do, don't think you have to write a book all of a sudden and then you have it. It takes time, but be patient with your writing. So sometimes, for example, I have a family, I have a wife, I have children. I have other things. So I don't have all the time in the world to just write. There's other things we have to do as humans. But I make sure I write a little bit every day. So for example, let's say I wrote 200 words today. Okay? And then tomorrow 200 words. Then by 5 days I've got 1,000 words. Or if I write 100 words, that's not too hard, is it? 100 words? You can do that, isn't it? 100 words. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, 100 words you could do. Okay, that means in 10 days you've written how many words? 1,000 words. In 20 days?
2,000.
One month, 3,000. That's a lot of words, 3,000. But it means you don't give up. You start, you don't give up, and you keep going. Even if it's small writing, but you carry on going. And that's how I wrote, alhamdulillah, all of these books. Just kind of a bit here, a bit there, then at the end of it all this kind of comes together. Alhamdulillah, tawfiq is from Allah. Yep.
Who's your publisher?
So I have different. So the first publisher is Brill. Brill is a very old publishing house based in London. It's based in Europe as well, in Leiden, and they're I think the oldest publishing house in England actually, Brill, but they also have bases in Europe. The more than 250 years old publishing house, Brill, and this one is Springer. Both of these are academic books. You'll find them in universities in this country. They're both in universities. So therefore, university students, like this one's Springer, publisher, and this one is Brill. Now these two are Islamic publishers because this is IERA. Who's heard of IERA before? IERA. Yeah? Sorry? Yeah, good. It stands for Islamic Education Research Academy. So IERA, they do dawah. They call people to Islam across the world. And I wrote this because they asked me to write it as a response to what happened in Christchurch, and then Sapiens is the people I work for. Yeah.
Do you ever get writer's block?
Writers?
Block.
Block. Or blog.
Writer's block.
Writer's block. What does that mean? Like?
It means that when you're writing and the idea is stuck and you're
Of
unable
course.
to write for a few days.
Of course. Yeah. I get them all the time. But what I do is that I use my phone. I have Samsung Notes. If I get an idea, even if I'm asleep or just woken up, I'll quickly write down the idea because I know that by the time I wake up, I've probably forgotten it. So I always should have like a pen and paper with you or notebook, and write down your ideas very quickly because they could come in very, very handy, very useful. Second thing I always do as an advice, when I'm reading, because you have to read a lot to write. By the way, you have to read a lot to write. But I always annotate my books. And you can't do that here because you can't deface the books in the school. But your own books, maybe at home, maybe when you get a bit older, you can annotate, and then it reminds you of your thought at that time. Yeah.
In your first book, why did you do poems?
Why did I do poems? Because so in Crusades history, what you have to do is you have to see, well, what is the thing that people haven't written about or spoken of or done research in? And I found that, number one, there are not many Crusades historians who know Arabic language. We learn Latin. I learned Latin in my master's, but we don't learn Arabic. And there's a big need for translating of Arabic texts, historical books, letters, poems, speeches into English. I wanted to focus on this area of poetry. Yeah.
How long did it take you to publish a book?
Yeah. So I don't publish anything. That's the publisher's job to publish the book. And in fact, it takes time for them as well to get all the typesetting done, to check there's no mistakes in it, to edit the books. That in fact takes quite a while as well. Yeah.
How do you guys edit the books?
Yes, I don't because I'm not a publisher. I'm just an author. But the publishers do that. Yeah.
What is the shortest book?
Shortest book is actually this book. This one.
How many pages does it have?
This is 150. This is 190, and then they kind of go more like that. Yeah.
Have you been to any other schools?
But because of my love for this school, I only come to this school. Isn't it? I'm just kidding. Yeah. I do presentations in other schools as well. But this is the first time I've been asked to come and speak about myself as an author in a school. So I'm very blessed to be in your company. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you writing a book at the moment?
We've got an idea to write a book, again based on our work in Sapiens, on the philosophy of history, but it's just a kind of in discussion right now, so we haven't agreed on. But right now I have to just promote this book, and I'm doing a debate, in fact, in Ireland, in Dublin, on Monday. I'm going to Ireland, inshallah, on Sunday, with a very, quite a famous priest called Dr. Michael Nazir Ali, who was going to in fact become Archbishop of Canterbury, so he's very famous. And in fact the debate discussion is on the theme of this, Christianity and Islam on sin and salvation. So we're just kind of working on promoting this book. Yeah, yeah.
How many pages did the longest book have?
Okay, so the longest book, this has 299. Yeah, yeah.
What are some cases of books that you could
Did the research? Good question. Perfect. What's a wonderful question. So for this book, I had to travel to Syria long before the conflict, long time ago. I spent time in Syria. I also went to Egypt. I did research in Egypt as well for this book over here. I've also been quite a few times to Spain, Islamic Spain. I take, in fact, groups of tours. We go to Malaga, to Cordoba, to Seville, to Granada. And that's helpful because it helps me, my ideas, and I can write about stuff like that. But for this one, over here, this one, because this covers many different sites of suffering, I've been to Auschwitz in Poland, a site of suffering for the Jewish people. I went to Auschwitz, I went to visit there. So therefore, I've also been to Bosnia. I've been to the site of the genocide in Bosnia and Srebrenica, and both of those, in fact, are covered, in this book over here. So, yeah.
When did your book finish writing all these books?
Yeah. So when did the
Publisher finish, right?
Yeah, so that's it. So the publisher's finished now because the books are published, so the publisher's job is done. Yeah.
When did you release your book?
Yeah, so this has just been released like a month ago. Alhamdulillah.
And then all the books.
Yeah, in different dates, different years. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you planning to write any other books?
Yeah, inshallah. I do have an aim. In fact, I once wrote a story. I wrote a story about maybe 6-7 years ago about Islamic Spain, about a Muslim family. But because of having to write these books, that was just kind of left in the back. So I still have it there. I've written about 10,000 words that I do want to, inshallah, finish soon, yeah.
Do you teach schools?
I am a history lead in Al-Madani Independent Grammar School. Who's heard of it? Aiming. Yeah, I work there. I teach Monday to Thursday, just in the mornings, teaching history to young great boys like yourselves, yeah.
My brother goes there.
What's his name?
Yusuf.
Oh, of course, I know Yusuf. Yeah, I know him. I know him, yeah, of course, yeah, mashallah.
Why do you want to write the books?
Sorry?
Why did you want to write the books?
Yeah, so I think it's important for us to communicate our ideas. Maybe you have great ideas, great wisdom in your mind, but the rest of the world should know about that wisdom, isn't it? So if you write books, at least they know what you're thinking. Yeah.
Which ages did you write books?
Which ages? Yeah, so, well, I've just turned 40, actually. So this is, I started when I was 38, I think, or 39. And then it's just going there. So, but this one, in fact, I wrote when I was in my 20s. This one over here, 27, 28 or something, Yeah. All right, yeah.
Who inspired you to write?
Who inspired me to write? Well, that's a perfect question. I think my father in my life, alhamdulillah, was still alive. I remember when I was like your age, okay? My dad used to go to work in a place called Isleworth, and he used to come home. He used to buy like these second-hand books that were on sale in libraries, and he used to just buy the whole a lot of them, and then bring them to my room and put them on my bookshelf. And he kept doing that. Old books, you know, of random subjects. But because he kept doing it, it inspired me to read. And I think what I would recommend to everybody is to keep reading. Of course, Allah in the Quran tells us as the first verse, Iqra, recite, read. And reading has a transformative effect on people. Because the more you read, the more you're learning about other people's lives, experiences, lands, geography, history, you know, all kinds of different things. So reading, in fact, is the biggest inspiration to writing as well. So yeah, at the back. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Out of your 4 books, how many words have you got in total?
Quiet.
How many words in total? Well, I mean, this book here was about. This was about 120,000 words. This one, and this one was about, I think, 80,000 words. And the other ones are smaller. So this one was about 60,000 words, and this is about 60,000, 60,000, something like that. So that's how much it was. Yeah.
Do you have chapters in your book?
Yeah, of course, because chapters are essential for dividing information in a book. You know. Yeah.
Is this your publishing house?
Yeah. So four different publishing houses. So we have Brill, Springer, iERA, and Sapiens Institute. Yeah. Yeah. At the back.
Ruqayya. Ruqayya. Whose question is it? Zaina? Khadija, yours? Okay, ask it please.
Have you written about Islamophobia?
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, so both of these books are about Islamophobia, both of them. This one tackles it because this was written as a response to the Christchurch, New Zealand massacre, and this deals directly with Islamophobia, how it's created, where it's coming from, what it leads to, what does hate create, violence and death and murder. And this is more of an academic book for university students, but also very much about Islamophobia as well. So yeah.
How many books do you write?
Yeah, 4. Yeah.
How many chapters do you have in all the books that you write?
Well, I don't have to count all of them. I don't know.
Different. Adam?
Yeah.
Are you going to publish that story?
The story, yeah, even my mom asks me that question actually, because I think you guys would love it because it's actually for your age, you know. It's for young people. It's a kind of a mystery story about Islamic Spain in a time called the Spanish Inquisition from 1492. It's about a family called the Fernandez family. And there is a young girl called Elvira, there's a boy called Nicolas, and they're secret Muslims, they have to hide out. And so I really loved writing it, but it's just that I just didn't get a chance to progress it. But I want to finish it. Make dua, inshallah, I get to finish it, yeah.
How do you start?
The first thing is you read. If you read, keep reading, get your ideas down, and then get a notepad, write down your ideas, and then try and transform them into sentences with capital letters, with full stops, with commas, with all of that stuff, punctuation, and then turn the sentences into a paragraph. Okay? And then after that paragraph is done, that's a very big success. Then you can make, well, this is a good paragraph, I want to make another one. And then again, write the sentences, capital letters, full stops, commas, all that stuff, and they turn into a paragraph. And the more paragraphs you get, then that's going to turn into a chapter. Then when that's done, then you can do the same thing for the second chapter. You can do it, inshallah.
One more question now.
Yeah.
Oh,
You go ahead.
that question.
Maliha.
As an author, you come up with lots of ideas. What inspired you to come up with that idea?
Yeah, so it's that I could spend a long time talking about that because it's important for us as Muslims to be inspired by a lot of different stuff. You know, like the books you guys read, for example, in school, should inspire you in many different ways. But always try and connect everything through the Quranic prism. What that means is that the Quran is your main source of information, the words of Allah and the prophetic Sunnah. and try and connect everything that you learn in life to that, and then your understanding, inshallah, will grow. And so I find inspiration. I can find inspiration. Like, for example, in this book I speak about different strands of empathy, but I could take, for example, my mother's love. I could take my father's love. I could take friendship. I could take kindness to animals. All of these, in fact, are inspirations for these different concepts. So different things can inspire you at different times in your life, depending on where you are, who you're talking to. So may Allah inspire all of us to do great things, inshallah. Ameen.
Okay, we are above the time now. Yaqub, just final question and then we will know more now. Sorry.
Sometimes publishers aren't really always. Sometimes publishers aren't Muslim, and they sometimes don't know about what you're talking about. Have you ever used? Have you ever come across a non-Islamic publisher you have ended up using, and was there any struggle with them?
That's a very good question, actually. Yes, so both of my first two books are non-Muslim publishers, but publishing houses, they don't ask you your religion or anything like that. They're more concerned about how good your research is in the book before they decide to publish it, you know? So you won't have that problem. But the main thing is that you should be proud of your religion, proud to communicate your ideas. If there's something I believe in, I'm going to write in the book, then they have to accept it because that's my belief, isn't it? Yeah, so you should never feel afraid of stuff like that. Yeah.
What do we say, children? Mashallah, it was wonderful. I have no words.
Thank you. Allah bless you. Thank you.
It was really, really good. It was inspiration for me and for everybody else.
Allah bless all of you. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair.
And Ken, I have the
Brother, you have made a video.